Okay, so with regards to fuel in our diagnosis, we still have to wonder, is this plugged in? Because that's a solenoid that helps control fuel pressure. That's our sensor, which our sensor seemed to be working since we were looking at the fuel pressure on the graph. And we also have a solenoid here that helps control fuel pressure or controls it. So we're going to skip over that stuff. That may be something we would need to look at, but we're going to move on in our diagnosis and go to air. Now, obviously, if the air filter was completely clogged, the car would get no air and combustion couldn't happen in the cylinders. Maybe if the air filter is just a little clogged, it would run for just a moment until the restriction got really, really bad, and then the engine would die. I think the easiest way to confirm that it's not an air filter problem is to take this off and run it without the thing. So can you do that for me, Cortland? Okay. Can you start it? After this the air goes down into the turbo, and then the turbo compresses it and pushes it through the intercooler. So is it possible that the intercooler's clogged up?
Possible. Someone might have left a shop towel in there. Not like.
And what about icing?
Icing is very common on these as well, so that could be a problem, but it's not cold enough right now for that to be an issue.
So it isn't cold enough right now for it to be frozen. Would water sitting in the bottom of the intercooler make a no-run situation?
No.
Okay. So, but since the intercooler, it is absolutely possible that somebody capped something off. Intercooler's in the front of the radiator here. It is possible somebody capped something off and then left that cap in there when they worked on it. This car has been worked on recently. Maybe we should disconnect the intercooler and is that logical? Is that... First of all, I want to say airflow is really hard to quantify. Lots of times I just ignore the whole airflow situation. But since this is a diesel and we're confident the fuel's working, we kind of have to look at airflow. So, I completely forgot to mention in the preface to this video that there was a DPF light on. I don't know why there wasn't a trouble code for it, but there is a DPF light on. See that DPF light there? And seems like there'd be a trouble code for it, but also the driver's information center gives us this message right here. Oop, it just went away. But you guys saw it. Maybe it'll scroll back through it. Will it?
No, you gotta go through it.
Can you go ahead? We'll scroll through it and find it here. There it is. Diesel particulate filter instructions. So maybe that would give us some direction that had... but everybody remembers the old Eddie Murphy movie, Beverly Hills Cop, where he stuck a banana in the tailpipe and it made the car not run. You remember that, don't you?
No, I haven't seen that actually.
Well, that'd be a good one for you to watch along with 48 Hours with Nick Nolte.
I don't know who Nick Nolte is.
Do you know who Eddie Murphy is?
I know him, but not Nick Nolte.
Well, he stuck a banana in the tailpipe. So if you ever hear somebody say, "I'm going to fall for no banana in the tailpipe," then you know that's where it comes from. Hey, Bob?
Yes, sir.
You going to fall for a banana in the tailpipe?
Every time.
Okay, once again, we're trying to quantify where this thing has airflow, and I want to mention this thing right here. It's an intake flapper. It diverts the air from one path to another path to change the airflow. This does have looks like it does have the 2015 repair kit on it. But I don't think, based on my experience, that can close off airflow. That can only redirect the airflow. So we also might be concerned with the ASV valve, anti-shutter valve. It could close off and make no airflow, but it seems like it would have a trouble code for that. These not only have an electric motor in them to open and close that valve, they have a sensor to sense the position of that. We also might be concerned that too much EGR might be going into it, making it, so what am I trying to say here, Cortland?
That the EGR valve might be stuck open, allowing too much exhaust gas into the cylinder, displacing the air in there, not allowing it to ignite.
A good test for that might be to install a block-off plate here, and that would limit, keep any EGR from going in. And if that made it run, then we'd know. But from experience, this hose is difficult to get off to view this valve. So you think we should pull the intercooler pipes first? Let's do that. Let's pull the intercooler pipes and see if it runs with the intercooler pipes disconnected. Okay, so the air pipe comes down here from the turbo and goes in here. And if there was any restriction, I guess we'd need to disconnect it from here first. And that way, if there's any restriction in the intercooler or any restriction in the turbo, that would eliminate both problems at the same time. So go ahead and disconnect it right here, Cortland. You millennials and your electric tools, you should use air-powered tools. I guess, can you ladder up and start it and we'll see if it dies still. Obviously a little bit of oil in there. I don't see that as enough to be a problem calling a bad turbo. It's kind of just the normal amount.
Ready?
Yep. Okay, so that didn't solve the issue. That didn't make our dying problem going away. So it doesn't seem to be an airflow problem with the intercooler. If there was an airflow problem, it'd have to be up above there. So we'll put that back together and go back up top. Okay, so with regards to airflow, once again, our ASV valve, which is very much like a throttle body, it could be closed off. And I tasked Cortland with taking this hose off in order to look up in there to see if the throttle was actually closed, restricting our airflow. But he said it was really difficult to get off and he'd have to take some stuff off down bottom. Just simply taking that clamp off, he couldn't get it to push down. So instead, he found an alternative method. Now, we know that there's an electric motor in here that opens and closes the throttle, and there's a sensor in there also. But he went looking for sensor data to see if it was opening and closing. But what he found instead was a output test that turns that thing off and on. And so we're going to run that output test and see if it responds and if we can tell if it's opening and closing.
All right, so I found the output test for that ASV valve here, and FADCOM's calling it control circuit for throttle body module. We can go ahead and select that, hit start, and it says it's running. You can see here it shows lid open and lid closed. Start, and it says it's running. You can see here it shows lid open and lid closed.
And over here, I can hear it. You probably can hear it too. Right there. And I can feel it. I can feel it moving. And so we're not going to go through the trouble of pulling this hose. If we can't ever find the problem, if we continue to struggle with the diagnosis, we'll pull this hose and look that that valve is actually open. But I think we're going to move on from that. Oh, Cortland did mention that the EGR could be displacing the oxygen, keeping it from running. So we'll probably go ahead and block that off and just eliminate that as a possibility. Now, these are the EGR block-off plates that I use for testing purposes. You've seen me use one of these in the videos before. You can look up in that corner if I can find it. I'll leave a card linking to it. But these will block off the EGR, and that'll tell us whether or not the EGR is displacing all the oxygen. If it continues to run and doesn't die, that will tell us that the EGR is stuck open and flooding it with too much exhaust gases to where it won't run. I'll have Cortland put one of those in there.
So I just want to make sure I'm not cross-stripping it.
Actually ran longer than it did before. Are we on to something, or is that just a random thing? Do it again. Nope, it was just a random thing. Okay, with regards to airflow, there's one final check I would like to make. I would like to introduce some air into here. Since we can't really get this pipe off here and verify 100% that this is open, if we leave this pipe off, take our block-off plate out, then maybe some airflow would go in there. Now that would be entirely dependent on whether the EGR valve was open or not. But if I recall correctly, these do run some EGR at idle. So if the EGR valve is open and oxygen goes in, then maybe that would indicate that it is an airflow problem. Go ahead and start it. Well, that seemed to fix our problem. Does that mean that the ASV valve, despite the fact that the thing seems to be moving, is stuck closed? That's kind of hard to believe, because even just now I heard it going jeep, 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 jeep. You might not have been able to hear it because Bob was over there making a loud noise with the air ratchet, but I could hear it going zip, jeep, 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 and turning. So I guess we're going to have to pull this tube off and video it. We have a Boroscope that we can stick up in there. Can we stick the Boroscope through the pipe without?
Like all the way from the bottom? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess we could.
Let's do that.
What are you doing?
Nothing?
Making sure his brain wasn't leaking out.
That's it.
Over there. More. Another in? No, no, I just take it off.
Just try just a little bit. Go on.
Oh, you might have got past it.
Yeah, but we got to be able to... Is that the EGR valve?
Oh, yeah. That's what it looks like.
Hey, Bob,
Oh, there's the ASV valve right there.
can you climb up in this? And just turn the car on.
Okay.
Don't start it, just turn the ignition on.
I think it still is.
If it's on, turn it off, then turn it back on.
Yep.
Are you recording all this?
Mm-hmm.
On.
Off?
Off.
Are you zoomed in enough? Is that clear what we're seeing here? Mm-hmm. Okay. Go ahead and start it, Bob. Shut it off! Thing's pretty busy when it shuts off, isn't it? Okay, that shows that the ASV valve is not closed. So I don't know what this means. Why is the car starting and dying, but yet we introduce airflow from the EGR pipe and it runs? Let's lower the car down and take another look. So this car runs with this pipe disconnected. And what we were testing for was airflow going in, and we were trying to eliminate the ASV valve, but our Boroscope test has clearly shown the ASV valve is open while the car is running, and that just isn't causing the problem. So if it can't be the exhaust gases displacing too much oxygen to keep it from running, because our plate, when we bolted our plate in there, that proved that that wasn't the case. If it's not an airflow problem, which is because we've identified that because the ASV valve is working, and it's not exhaust gases displacing the oxygen, making it not run, then it almost has to be the exhaust clogged. And now that we have this open, the exhaust is coming out, and the exhaust comes out here, and that allows it to run. We do have a DPF light, right?
Yeah.
So maybe this is a clogged DPF. So we should go down underneath and disconnect well, we can try the cat. The cat's easy to disconnect. The DPF is not easy to disconnect. We can try the cat. Do you think that should be our next step?
I think so. Bolt that up and disconnect the cat.
Bolt that up and disconnect the cat.
Let's see.
Okay, so we're looking over the exhaust, do a quick visual inspection just to make sure there's nothing obvious clogging it off. There's our DPF, which we would worry might be clogged because we do have a DPF light. We also have a catalytic converter here. And there's this device here could potentially clog it off. That has a butterfly inside it that can close off the exhaust. That's for regeneration purposes. But every time these have failed in the past, because I've changed a bunch of them before Dieselgate, it's triggered a trouble code. So I don't think so. Once again, it has a motor inside of it, and that motor turns the shaft that opens and closes the butterfly, but there's also a sensor inside it to sense the position of that thing. Let me get this back on here. And so I don't think that could actually fail stuck without triggering a trouble code, but we'll have to eliminate that as a possibility. If that's clogged off, we'll know. And then there's a resonator. We have a muffler. No obvious pinches in the exhaust pipe. Another muffler here. And Cortland, can you go ahead and pull that pipe off? Okay, Cortland has disconnected the exhaust right here to eliminate a clogged cat as being the problem. It also eliminates the valve, this resonator, and anything behind. If the car still starts and dies, then we know that the restriction in the exhaust has to be up there, and the only thing up there is the DPF. So let's go ahead and start it. It's funny that I only saw a puff of smoke come out after it died. It seems like some exhaust should come out earlier. Okay, let's try again. I'm putting my hand here. There's really hardly any airflow coming out of there at all. Almost for sure that means it has to be the DPF clogged up, and it has to be allowing it to run when we disconnect that EGR valve, because the exhaust pressure is going through the EGR valve. I guess we could shove our Boroscope up in there and make sure there ain't something blocking the flex pipe or something along those lines. I'm shoving our very nice Boroscope up into an exhaust to look and see if the flex coupler's clogged with something, and maybe we can get a look at the DPF. Oh, is that the DPF? Is it all broken up? I think that, see that over all the way to the right, I can't, there's no way I can change the angle that I'm pointing it at, but it kind of looked like the substrate was broken apart. You see that? There, it's kind of, you see that? It should be like a uniform grid. Yeah, that's definitely broken up. I'm talking to you, Cortland. Do you hear it? Do you see it?
I think I yes, I do see it.
That part right there is broken.
Yeah.
And then I guess for comparison purposes, we'll stick it in the cat. Although I don't think we need to. Can we just look? Well, I'll go ahead and stick this in there. See how that looks? That's the way it should look. Just a unified very. How do I say that? Oh wait, there's chunks of the DPF over there. Can you see that?
Oh yeah.
There's chunks of the DPF in the cat. Well, the cat should look like that with a grid pattern, and it shouldn't be broken up with chunks falling out of it like the DPF is. We have come to the conclusion, and it's pretty conclusive, that the DPF is causing this car not to run. And this is the first car I've ever had that the exhaust caused it not to run. Now, I've had gas cars that the catalytic converter would break up and make it run bad, but I've never had one actually make it not run. So the banana in the tailpipe is a real thing, I suppose. But for now, we have to recommend a DPF to this customer. And this car has really high mileage, and it needs DPF. Now, a delete is an option, but we don't do deletes here. With regards to the rest of the diagnosis, the FAST-TEC diagnosis, we found the problem with A, airflow. And I think we're doing a good job because we did find it at A, because the engine is an air pump, as Cortland said, and if the air doesn't go out the tailpipe, the air cannot come in. So despite the fact that we found the exhaust problem during the airflow part of the problem, I think we still did a good job on the diagnosis. So if you like this video, you learned anything from it, click the like button. And if you want to donate to the continued production of these videos, find the donate icon on my website at www.kansascitytdi.com. And if you want to watch some more of my videos, there'll be some right there and some right there. And don't forget to subscribe right there. Thanks for watching.